It always feels like I'm entering a different dimension when I get on this.
It kind of is, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of.
So, last time we left off on, let me see.
It was the end of that section that starts on page 77.
Right, okay, so...
Training protocols in the alchemies of Horus.
Right, and it was getting right into the exercises.
Yes.
We left off with them last time. So,
Right.
did anybody, I mean, I took a lot of notes on the exercises, just for my own knowledge, you know, to try it out another time. I didn't do any of them. Did anybody try
No.
any of the exercises?
I tried the first primarily.
You tried what?
I tried the first one.
Yeah.
What
was your experience? I'm reading to go for it. I don't remember which one that is. There were so many that I get them all.
Yeah.
They all merge together in my head because they are very similar. So
Yeah.
They are. So the first one is...
It's from the perineum to the head, so it's kind of like the center passageway or pathway.
And they all start the same way, don't they?
Yes, they
They
do.
all start with the same breathing in the pelvic area.
and even the rising is similar. So the first one you just focus on the how do you pronounce that? Sekhem?
Sekhem, I suppose. Yeah.
Whereas the other exercises introduce the
snakes.
serpents.
The serpents, yeah. So I guess the first one is a bit more general. A general sort of
intro.
Raising of the energy from the pelvic area up to the crown. Is that right?
Now, when you guys are reading through this, I mean, are you thinking of Kundalini and all of that? Obviously,
very much so.
It is. That's basically what's happening.
I found it very hard to separate these descriptions from experience I've had with Kundalini. So I haven't done the exercises because I know that when I do, there's a good possibility the effects will be quite dramatic, and I need some time around it.
Yes.
You know, I will need to have space for whatever flows, right? And I mean, it's hectic. I work full time, and then I do my art and my swimming and my, so I'm going to have to set time aside specifically to do the exercises.
That's a good idea.
Right.
That's why I haven't done them either. I just haven't had enough time to dedicate towards them, and we all know that premature Kundalini rising. If you're not prepared, that could be very dangerous. Anyway, so it's a good idea to take it slow and to not blast through it.
Yeah.
But
I had a spontaneous experience once, which was really, really quite dramatic, and so that's why I just know I need to give this a lot of space when I do it. So
yeah, that's exactly how I feel too.
Have the rest of you ever had any kind of a Kundalini experience that would be similar to what's talked about?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Was that related to your car accident, or?
No.
Because that would be quite typical.
It was in 2012 in December. I went into the hospital and I almost died. I had
Oh, Donna.
Oh my God.
Goodness.
Well, I'm very glad you didn't.
Me too.
No, but it was like a lot like that, like it says.
Okay.
Like about 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital, like at night, I suddenly woke up and I was still having a lot of a hard time breathing because it was around my lungs, the pleural lining was all swollen, and I felt like just air rushing through my nose, and like I was surrounded by angels, and like they were giving me air. And I'm like walking around, I'm like, there's no vents. Where's this coming from? And like I could feel it, you know?
Wow.
And it was just going really strong. And
Right.
yeah, it was pretty strange.
And
Wow.
I mean, in this book, there's no mention of because some practices identify two types of Sekhmet energy, Kundalini energy. One is the masculine, and one is the feminine. Damn, it's my phone.
Yes. And I've never heard of that.
No. But so far in the book, it seems that it only deals with the what they call the masculine type, which is the dramatic sort that is very vertical and up the spine, right? That's what they would call the masculine type. And quite often people who have these experiences are quite egoic about it, like, you know, like might just brag about it and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then the feminine type is a much more gentle feeling, kind of rolling sensation, and the descriptions that people give are very, and I concur, because I had that type as well, like 6 months later, when I started regularly practicing Kundalini meditation, because my first big dramatic experience, I didn't even know it was Kundalini. My head was like going like this, and I was trying to stop it. You know, I just didn't know what was going on. And I know, and this rolling, feminine, more gentle energy is very often likened to champagne bubbles. Kind of golden champagne bubbles going around your body, and it's very healing and very gentle and very sweet. But I only had that the one time, and I really would love to revisit it. Yeah. So in this book, it would seem that all these practices are dealing with so far anyway, we haven't read the whole thing, or at least I haven't.
Yeah, I think there's more later in the back, because I think I read the more feminine one later. But
excellent.
I can't even find my book.
Oh.
I thought I left it out, and I must have like moved it because I got boxes.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it in terms of it, them not really talking about the female experience, the more feminine experience. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's the first time I hear.
That sounds really nice. The champagne bubble.
Yeah, no, it was really sweet, and it was kind of like an inner smile as well, like kind of smiling with the whole of your inside. I don't know if any of you have done exercises where you sit down and meditate, and you invite your body to speak to you. Okay. And if you do that, and you say, "Show me something," and then you place your consciousness, you take it out of your head, right, and you move it deliberately around your body, all around, and you're taking one big sort of internal photo, right? And then at some point, the body is delighted that it's got your attention, and it takes over, and it takes your consciousness and zips around, going, ooh, look what's happening here in the shoulder, and look at this, and let's fix that, and you know, and a few times when I'd gotten into that space, I was like 2 hours later, I was like, I'm sorry, I've got to go and eat and cook and go to work, and my body's going, no. So that reminds me of the feminine kind of rolling Kundalini energy. So that might be a way in.
That's so
It's certainly a lot of fun.
Where you do a body scan, you start at the top of the head and see what all needs your attention, and then you realize you feel all the areas that you completely ignore because you're going nice and slow. And,
it's curious. It was curious for me, the spontaneous craniosacral therapy that I was getting. And I was like, I would get this jabbing here, and I didn't realize it was kind of linked to something in there, and
wow.
and then you discover all these connections between muscle groups that you just didn't know existed and stuff. So I really, really recommend it as a practice. And all you have to do is a bit quiet, because the body is so keen. It's so happy to have your focus that it will just take over. And I've just realized as I'm enthusing about this that I haven't done it for ages. I will. Okay.
I'm just looking through my notes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Marissa. When I do Reiki and Prana, I use both together. And so I build up my vibration first. So I go through the whole chakras, because the prana works the opposite way. You start at the root and go up. And then when you get to the crown, it's a feeling of like this, like water spraying.
Oh, yeah. That's what they talk about.
And you're in there under
it.
And then you go down the spinal cord. So then you revisit the different chakras, and like when you get to either doing more chakras than just the first 1, 7, or doing healer 2, rather than just having done the first course. What you do while you're doing the chakras, you do the feet. You send negative energy either from the feet, your hands, whichever, down to Gaia or above. Some do it one way, some do it another. But I go to every organ and everything while I'm doing it. So I'm going left, right, jaw, teeth, so that you feel in yourself, like when you're sending it distant, you can feel in your body where their problem is, right?
Right. So you use your body as a tool, as a diagnostic tool.
Because I can use my hands over my own body.
I see.
I'm not physically with them, right? That's how you do it.
For me, sometimes I feel little things in my body, that little pains or little sensations, but usually I don't. I think I try to keep some sort of if I don't keep some sort of a boundary up, then I feel like I'm going to take on a lot of that stuff, because that's just how I am. So I try actually not to try to feel it sometimes, because then that pulls me out of the healing, and that, I fixate on that kind of a thing. So yeah, it's different for different people. It's just you have to play around with it and figure out what works for you.
Yeah,
well, if there's someone
ailing, you're staying in that area though, right? When a spot needs more healing, you can help because you're still in that spot.
Right.
I mean, I don't really feel their pain because, like you said, when you're doing it, you're going to shield, you're going to protect,
Right.
Otherwise, you'd get a headache, you'd get everything going on.
Then you need to go to a healer yourself because you took it all.
Now do me again.
I've given massages when I've totally amateurishly sucked up everything, and I've had to spend like half an hour like curing myself afterwards. Yeah, so I've still to learn how not to do that. So Donna, in the context of this discussion, then you're talking about the Kundalini energy exiting your skull, kind of in a spray. So what did that? Or
it's inside the skull.
Yeah.
There's a big area inside your brain. If you look at an MRI picture, it's like this, and there's an area.
So when you read about the cobra,
like and it's
how did you feel about that?
So like your energy is focused standing in that area. And it's like this big whoosh feeling, and it goes shh. So it kind of looks the same like where the wine glasses or champagne flutes meet in the cocoon. It's the same spot. And that's what it's showing, is this feeling of going
like a fountain.
It's going right everywhere.
A bit of a Taurus as well, kind of. So when you read about the other exercises that involve actually focusing on going up behind the back of the skull and over the brain, between the brain and the skull, in that sort of cobra motion, I felt this real kind of aha moment there. Did anyone else feel that? Or was that comparison that had never occurred to you before?
Well, I mean, I thought about things like Egyptian crowns and things like that right away, because the whole, the cobra aspect, and go, because it's right there. So I said, that makes a lot of sense, that they have to go somewhere, and that resonated a lot.
Well, cobras for me have been, now these were spine-tingling moments for me reading it, because I actually grew up in India. I was in India for 6 years as a child, and we actually had a cobra in our yard, in our courtyard.
Wow.
I know, and we knew it was there because its burrow was smooth from when it would enter and exit. And as it enters and exits, it smooths down the edge of the earth around the hole, right? So we knew it was there. And I definitely saw it in my mind's eye, sort of always in the periphery of my vision, right? A number of times. And what gave me this almighty electric shock was the realization, because I went back a little bit into my memory and realized that the snake I was seeing was black.
Oh.
But there are no black cobras.
That's the serpent. That's the energy, the male energy serpent.
Cobras are not serpent. Cobras are not black, as far as I know.
Right,
and certainly not the one in that area, as far as I know. They're not black. So.
You mean in your mind's eye, or you actually saw the black serpent?
I repeatedly saw it in the periphery of my vision, and because there was an actual cobra in the courtyard.
Okay.
I didn't think, especially not as an 8-year-old, 8-year-old, I didn't think, that's not the cobra, it's something else. No. I just assumed that was the cobra.
Maybe the cobra triggered something within you.
It certainly did. I had a levitation experience.
Oh, okay, that's what.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's only kind of in the last 5 years that these memories keep resurfacing on a loop.
Wow.
That I realized that it wasn't a dream. It was 100% real, and in fact it was ultra real, like a lot of these moments are. When you have in the Shift movie, they call it a quantum moment, right? Has anyone seen the Shift movie?
No, but now I am going to see it.
Oh, you have to. It's beautiful. It's very inspiring and right on as well. The quantum moment is a moment where you suddenly perceive reality in a radically different way, where you just can't from then on not do what your heart desires.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
That's what I want to get.
And quantum moments are, broadly speaking, also moments of realization or moments of sort of alternative
Right.
perspectives, perception, states of consciousness, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this one, I remember every little. I remember the gloss of the terracotta tiles and the exact color of the cement that separated them, and I remember what was reflected in those tiles, and I remember and what's striking about this experience is, of course, you've got the black snake, and then when I freaked out when I realized that the other snake is gold.
Oh.
Okay. Why? Because during this experience, where this experience began is when I reached for a brass doorknob.
Oh, wow.
Which is golden color, and I was reaching for the doorknob. Then I lost all track of time. Like time just kind of expanded sideways, and there was this beautiful gold shaft of light that came through the door because it had a window pane on it. So I was completely suffused in what I presume is the feminine gold energy.
Yes.
And then the masculine sort of black snake popped up in behind me on the periphery of my vision. It was skulking behind me. And then I noticed that my arm was rigidly straight. And I felt this kind of buzzing through my hand. And then I noticed that the floor was a lot closer than it had been a while back, and that this is when I saw this ultra detail in the terracotta tiles. And then I realized that my feet were free floating in the air.
Wow.
And finally, I realized that I was horizontally stretched.
Oh my God.
With a massive current running through my arm, through the brass doorknob.
Wow.
With the other snake behind me. And then someone called my name, and I gently floated back, and I felt my feet sort of land.
Wow.
And then I turned the doorknob, staggered into the living room, and my mum says, "Sarah, where have you been?" And I said, "I don't know." But, it's those things that happen, and then it's over in an instant, and I kind of buried it for years to come. And then reading this, it just struck home.
Yes.
It really,
You know
really
what's really,
struck
really
home.
funny to me right now is that you look very Cobra-like. You're right now. Your sweater is very, very Cobra-like.
Cobra-like. Yes, it is.
Wow.
Well, okay, that's good. That's accidental. I hope this cobra's just eaten some sort of bird.
Well, I like how you mentioned the quantum stuff, because that was very interesting to me. I was at that point in the notes too that the causality exists in the quantum field, and I like the Bell theorem. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's at a quantum level there is no objective observer, since the intention of the experience affects the outcome. I thought that was interesting.
And I felt you could extrapolate that for life and to everything, right?
Yes.
Does anyone else feel that way?
Yes, which is like the perspectives.
I just love the mystery of it almost. That there's the concept of that, the distance that it jumps, the neuron jumps. That's the quantum level. That's the quantum effect. And I thought, that's exactly what we do as healers. We work with that energy. We work with the in-betweens almost. That's so interesting.
Now, was that 100th of an inch or 1,000th of an inch? I keep forgetting.
The 1,000th of an inch. That's where the quantum and Newtonian worlds meet.
Yes, amazing. And I love the explanation. I thought it was so crystal clear, right? No, I loved it.
Well, when they spoke about the Sarah from the serpentine drops, they reminded me of the experience you had of the red drops.
Yes.
That came to mind. I said, "Oh, that's Sarah experienced that."
Yes, red and white. And in fact, I had it down in my notes of things to ask Hannah about. I was going to say, what are those drops doing? They're following me around. And also, I must put I've got a really gruesome idea that's popped into my head that I must lay to rest. I really must lay to rest because I don't know why, but I related those drops to death, not life.
Really?
Well, I had a friend who I learnt through a mutual friend had committed suicide. And I said, "Oh, you can't help but ask how did he do it?"
Right.
And he said to me, "You don't want to know." That's what he said to me. You just do not want to know. And I've just got this image of Peter hanging from some wooden beam with red blood drops dropping down. So I've got to sort of maybe put that to rest.
Well, they say that when you hang, you actually have an orgasm.
Yes.
From the experience. So maybe passing from this dimension to the next, you also have that energy present. I guess, perhaps.
Not always, though. It's not always successful, the orgasm. I mean, it depends, how quickly the oxygen leaves your brain and how quickly your heart stops beating, and who knows.
I'm figuring if there was if there were drops, then it might be associated with this energy thing.
Yes. No, you're right. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I'm still with bodily fluids.
Because she does speak about having to go through the underworld. That she was strengthening his ka so that he can go through the underworld, which is through the death. I forget what she calls it, something death. So
Not
that was
the Valley of Death, or
she didn't say the Valley of Death.
No. I know what you mean.
Yeah, she repeated more the word underworld. So that was kind of like left unexplained. I don't know if you guys felt
he was blazing a trail so that other humans could then pass through.
Right, but
and it's interesting how often I think I've noticed in different bits of culture like references to that.
Yes, yes, and a lot of cultures. Yeah, and also the Egyptian, the Mayan. But she doesn't go much into what that meant, that he had to go through that death or underworld thing. So that was interesting. I'm kind of left hanging.
To establish a path of light through the dimensions.
Right.
Isn't that what that's
about?
She mentioned,
she mentioned that was his thing to do, but she mentioned like not normal, but something that not everybody goes through. She said she almost gave the impression that it was something that everyone goes through, but then somewhere else she just referred it to Joshua, so that was kind of like very unclear.
Well, it's almost like if you think about the hero's journey, there is a portion where it's kind of the underworld. You go into the underworld and then reemerge. So maybe that it had something to do with that, because the hero's journey is found in basically everything. So a lot of us do go through those things throughout our lives in different phases, but
which does sound like the Valley of Death, or the the dark night of the soul. I think it's the same thing.
That's exactly.
Maybe, right?
I'll have to find there's a really epic chart that someone made of the hero's journey, combining a bunch of different people's interpretations of it. That's really, really good. I think Bo posted it, actually. I'll have to find that because that sounds a lot like, I don't remember that part specifically in the book, but it sounds like that. I was curious about everyone here because I know everybody kind of has intuitive powers a bit in some ways, and so I was reading about, he mentions the different Claires in the book, and I always try to think about, which ones I resonate with or which ones I don't. And so what do you feel are your strengths there?
Sorry, he mentions the different what?
Sorry, the clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairgnosis, and so I'm wondering where you guys feel your strengths are with the different ones. And also he calls them the cities?
The CDs. The
Yeah.
CDs. Yes. Well, I guess I'm very corporeal. I've yet to project this across time and space, but I definitely sit next to someone and feel their body. And I guess I'm very, very visual. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what comes to me is in pictures. Yeah, and then I would also say that my special skill, as it were, is to navigate my imagination and manipulate and do this kind of lucid dreaming, but in wakefulness. Mm. Okay, and then I can, within that space, I can ask questions, and then I will either get an answer instantaneously within that fantasy, so to speak, or in a dream.
That's cool. I want that.
Yeah. So I guess
looking down the list, you're like, can I have it all? What I thought was interesting, though, is that, I wrote this part down because I thought I wanted to get your take on it. He says, clairsentients may also be empathic, but in addition, they receive psychic impressions in the form of subtle physical sensations. So really, he's saying that clairsentients aren't always empathic. So I was trying to wrap my head around that because, from what I understand, aren't empaths, you know what I mean? Aren't they clairsentient? I'm having trouble separating those two things.
Right. So do I. It's true.
Can you say it again, Marissa?
Yes. Clairsentient.
So you're having trouble separating what from what?
Oh, the clairsentience, the inner feeling with empathy, being empathic. He's kind of saying that there's a separation there, that you don't always have to be empathic and clairsentient at once.
Yes.
And I'm just having trouble understanding that.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
it's hard to separate that.
I can see why they're separate.
Is he saying empathy has a judgment part to it? What's he trying to say, do you think?
For me,
I think isn't it when you're empathic, you are tuning into someone's present state. Is there an aspect of time in this somewhere? Because if you're clairsentient, you're getting a whole lot more of the picture.
I think maybe what the difference is, and then I'll let I think Louise was speaking up, but I think maybe what it is, in my head at least, empathics, it seems like there's not a lot of control there. It's like you're feeling it, and you can't always control because you're empathic. Whereas clairsentient, maybe there's more of a control there. Maybe there's more of a directed attention there instead of just feeling it all. You know what I mean? At least feeling someone else's energy. But I'm not sure. Louise, what were you saying?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. For me, I'm definitely clairsentient. I just know things. And and I'm also empathic. And there's a different sensation in the body when you're picking up on someone's pain and when you're picking up on a knowing in a portion of your body. It's like you're feeling the consciousness that's normally in your brain, maybe in your knee, you're feeling consciousness there, like an awareness. If you're kind of linking into someone to know about an issue with them, but for empathic, pain. For me, I feel either awareness or pain.
It also sounds like claircognizant.
Yes. Yes.
I wonder if probably they're all involved at one point or another. Because I had the experience where I wanted to know, my mother was always saying, when you grow up, you're going to get married, whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not getting married. So she insisted so much that I decided, okay, I'm going to follow my mother and see if I'm going to like her life, her married life. So I followed her like a shadow. And at one point, I wanted to feel her feelings, and I found myself inside her body for like a split second. It's only now that I realize, oh, that really happened, because it always came to my mind. So I felt myself inside of her. And I consider myself more empathic and second clairvoyant, because I have a lot of visions. I have visions like every day. So I would say that there's a lot of things happening at one point. So I have the same question about separating my feelings from my empathic sensations, where I can feel that other person's body, or I can feel their feelings. Like, what's feelings and what's,
I think the difference is really understanding your consciousness, because for claircognizance and clairsentient, it's about your awareness. Like for you, you must have really just in your consciousness shifted and joined your mother's consciousness to have the awareness of her life. Like if she would have had a finger that day, you might not have felt a paper cut in your body, but you would have observed what her internal feelings were and how she felt about it. That's consciousness. For me, empathic feeling is I literally, like if I'm with somebody who has a broken leg, I'm going to have a hard time walking.
Okay, yeah. The empathic stuff is really in the body.
Yes, it's very much, and you have to bring it up into your consciousness to divide it from yourself. To say, oh, well, this is not me. It's a decision that you have to make, because that feeling just invades you.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense now to me, especially thinking about when I'm doing healings. Now, there's a difference between me being aware of an issue in the body when I'm healing. I'm in a different state of mind, whereas sometimes that'll leak over into feeling it. I start to get emotional because I'm, that's the emphasis, me feeling it, and then I have to ground myself, and then go through it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's where your awareness, your consciousness has to, everybody talks about a shield outside of them, but for me, the shield is really, it has to originate in your consciousness to where you understand you're feeling enough to know, oh, this isn't mine, I've got to consciously separate here. I've got to divide because I know the difference. That comes from your awareness, your consciousness.
And that leads back to the whole, know yourself first.
Yes.
That's the way to be a powerful healer is know yourself first, and then.
Because I'm still at the point where I can be confused, where I'm not sure. Whether it's mine or yours.
Yes.
I'm still there. I'm like, I haven't got all that straight. Or I can feel someone else's discomfort to the point where I'm sure it's my own, and then that person leaves abruptly, and I realize, oh, it was theirs. So I'm beginning to realize more and more that I'm very corporeal.
And I think too, we've misunderstood this whole theory of being in the present moment as in being in a place in time, when to me it's also being in a place of your own aware sovereignty. Where being in the now moment means that you know you are in and of yourself. So that if you spend more time in that place and you run into someone, you'll begin to learn where you end and they begin.
So we've heard, Marianne, you've spoken a bit about what your abilities, where yours lie, and Lois too. Donna, what would you say your clairsentience is based in your consciousness?
One thing I wanted to say is like being a healer and doing it with intention now, whether it's in person or, you know, my sending it. That helped me notice how often in my life I don't realize it, that I'm always taking in other people's energy and healing it. Like the other day when I went and looked at the two apartments, I was like shaking, and I couldn't stop, and I come home and I'm like, am I hungry? What's wrong? And then I'm like, and it seemed to be the first apartment in the city. I was picking up either that landlord's energy or like the street, the area, something.
And the very apartment itself, possibly. Something happened there.
Right. I didn't get what. I mean, I didn't see anything, which I usually do. And in that kind of case, I know I took in other energy, and this shakiness, I got to, you know, get it off of me, right? But I think in life, it just takes you by surprise.
Yeah, it does.
I'm going to protect, you know.
I know. That's true.
Because you want to be there for other people, too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So I do have a hard time with that. My abilities, I get a lot of music. I get a lot of lucid dreams, so I can go from night to walking around and just, it'll keep going off and on during the day. It'll restart when I'm driving or doing mindless work like the dishes, things like that.
Yes, any menial tasks that move you into a meditative state where you're obliged to focus on something outside of yourself for a while, and then that frees up your mind and it allows it to wander. And that for me, that's my fertile. That's when I'm receiving. And it's interesting that I was reading about Albert Einstein and how he was known to go and take a nap, and to when he needed to solve a problem. I'm very much into that, and it's particularly being horizontal and allowing myself to drift. That's where the magic happens for me.
Well, I think the horizontal is the magnetic energy when we sleep. It's the magnetic, the earth energy, and the vertical is more the electric. So it makes sense to me.
Does it also have to do with? Does it also have to do with fluids in the brain? Possibly.
Possibly.
And because when I did a lot of tapping, you know, EFT. Those were major. I accessed major breakthroughs with that. And what's remarkable about drastically unblocking your energies, this is what led up to the Kundalini experience, I realize now, is that you start to get a kind of level of sensitivity where you're feeling the liquids in your brain move around.
I've had that feeling.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's why all this business of the cobra in the brain, you know, that had me on fire, basically.
Yeah.
So,
I thought it was interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to go back to the book, but is there anyone else we haven't heard of from? Unfortunately, Analia isn't feeling very well. Kind of a bit overwhelmed, I think, she said. In the chat.
I think she's having some heart chakra issues or
yeah.
something like that, which that's okay. I'm glad she recognized that and said, "All right, I better get out of here and tend to myself." But I was gonna say, hearing everyone's experience with the different Claires and all of that, I feel like right now for me, it's like a mixed bag. I feel like I'm developing different ones, and there's not a single one that I mean, maybe probably clairsentience would be my main one, but I don't know what's going on with me, but I think I'm understanding more of them now. I'm hearing more and I'm seeing more now than I used to. So maybe other ones will emerge.
Does anyone have any experiences with precognizance?
Yes.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. Only a handful of times, but like dealing with really intense emotions, where I've just had someone else's emotion completely consume me and not understand what it was about, and then the actual event, the release from that person an hour later or something. Or another thing that might happen is my mind comes up with some images from my own memories that just pop into my head, like an experience with someone that had happened 20 years before that I'd never spoken to since. That memory floats up of shattered glass before an explosion of hot temper, and then I'm thinking about that as I walk home. And then as I get into the kitchen, there's smashed glass all over the kitchen floor. And when I realized, the moment that I realized that my housemate, she comes in and I'm like, what happened? Are you okay? You know, she was like, oh, yeah, I had to go out. And I was just incandescent with rage because I so often go into the kitchen barefoot that I could have just massacred my feet. And that was the moment I blew up, and which is very, very rare for me, actually. So and moved out. So, yeah, so that would be an example for me of that kind of, like, either in a memory or in my body, as empathically. Like feeling that feeling, and then it happening a few minutes later.
Yeah, I had a download of information when I met my first husband. I knew how he was raised. I saw his. It was more informational, but also visual. I saw his brothers. I saw his mother. I saw the dynamics between the whole family. I saw his emotional problems. I saw my future, that I was going to meet him, marry him, have a tumultuous relationship, and have no children in a split second, the moment I just saw him, and I didn't even know him. And then another one when I was 5 years old, that I was shown the pyramids, a bird's eye view of the pyramids, and I was told that the information of the beginning of man and how we came to Earth was recorded there between the Sphinx and the pyramids somewhere along there. And then when I read Edgar Cayce talked about the same thing. I was like, ah! So I've had moments like that where I have this download of information. But that's only happened a few times. But you're right about the feelings, standing next to someone, and I could just feel the thoughts of everybody. And that becomes me, and then I don't know what's me or what's not me, what's my imagination, what's my ego, you know, am I really feeling this, is this true? And it just becomes like, oh my God, so crazy that I just lose myself there. So yeah, I would like to know how to separate that. But I also have sounds. Yeah, and then I also have sounds and visions, the sounds, the feelings. It could get crazy. But yes,
Overwhelm.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I had that with my family where I could just feel and hear everyone's thoughts, and their kind of not just their conscious thoughts but their ego's thoughts.
Yes, yes.
And it all mashing together in this big angry kind of black ball of kind of conflict. And the only self-loving thing for me to do was step out of it, because I couldn't handle the sheer vastness of so many, if you like, tendrils or kind of lines of causation, all converging into one tragedy of miscommunication.
Yes.
And this for me, this was further exacerbated by the fact that there might be 3 languages at play.
Yeah.
And there might be misunderstandings, not just because people are being judgmental, but also because people are like, they've got different vocabulary.
Yes.
And when I sort things out, I will be writing about these things.
Oh, good.
Yay! Hopefully. Speaking of writing, what did we think about?
Can I just? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go for. Well, okay. So he touched on, explained beautifully the basic principles of quantum theory, which I loved. And then what was new to me as well was the 3 elements of alchemy, right? Was this all familiar for you? The 3 elements. If you look at page 90, on the.
Not that far.
Oh, you haven't?
Not me. No, I didn't.
I wrote a lot about this part because I thought it was very interesting.
Yes. So do we maybe?
Oh, hi, Lindsay.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Who's that?
It's Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay.
I jumped in here because I'm that excited. So.
Yeah. Anyone would think you were Paizook 2032, but no, apparently not. Nice to meet you. So yes, the 3 elements that must be in place for successful alchemy. 1, alchemical reaction. A substance to be transformed. 2, a container to hold the alchemical reaction. And 3, energy.
Oh yeah, I read that. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. I like how you broke it down as an example too. That the container is the focus.
Yes.
On the top
absolutely.
in your awareness. The substance is sun, and awareness is ka. So that, okay. So that's what we're doing.
Yes, and that and this concept of the container of your awareness, and you can make that physical in your body, in your pelvis.
Yes.
As a basis for the impulse. For the Sekhmet to rise, and that is the channel of your awareness.
To activate it.
Yes, and then the alchemy takes place.
I like did anyone read the analogy he made about the tea kettle brewing tea?
Yes.
And I like that. I really liked that he said losing the container for awareness is like taking the tea kettle off of the stove. And I thought that was interesting because it's true, on my perspective, with healing, I feel like, yes, when my awareness is shifting away, it's not like cut and dry. It's not like, next chakra. It does, it's like
I'm sure he must have got that from some Oriental writings, because there are things I've read about tea ceremonies.
Oh, absolutely.
That draw on metaphors of this stuff. So, but all this talk of liquids, I'm just gonna have to disappear for a minute. Please don't say anything important.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Right here where he's talking about the tea kettle, if you think about it, that's what our physical body is. Because without it, we're not human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So
The container.
if you're thinking about source being free-floating and non-confined, maybe he can't have an alchemical reaction and has to have it through us.
Mm.
I mean, that's maybe what the
That makes
vessel,
sense.
the body, really kind of holds the space for.
Like literally. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Well, I was wondering too, because we went over what he calls the lesser cities, and then the greater ones would be levitation, teleportation, bilocation. Right. I know Sarah mentioned levitating. Has anyone else ever experienced any of these? I haven't yet.
I experienced my energy moving my bed. If that's in that category.
I would think so.
Yeah. For many years, I woke up with my bed moving. I woke up because my bed was moving, but I had pets, so I always thought it was the pets. Until one day it got so bad, and they died. After they died, I paid attention and I realized that the energy was coming from my body, and I had this vortexes coming from my hands, and like these balls scraping, spiraling on my hands and on the top of my head. And I had this energy like a heartbeat expanding out of my body to like 8 inches, I felt. And then I felt the bed was moving. So for years I was like, has anybody had this experience? What's going on with me? And yeah, and Pamela said that it was that I was receiving the energies, that I was, I guess, awakening at that point. But
when was that, Maria?
That happened like for 10 years. It was happening. It just kept growing incrementally until I felt the energy come out of my body like 8 inches, and it was moving my bed.
Wow.
I was standing still, moving my bed, and it felt like a rhythm. It felt like a breath, breathing out of my body and in, out and in, like a balloon. And then I felt these vortexes on my hands and on the top of my scalp, and I could feel the balls rotating. And it was scraping my scalp, like scraping my hands and scraping my scalp. I could feel it. And this energy was just ballooning out of me. It was weird. At first, I was saying before, I thought it was my pets, but then my pets died, and there was nobody to blame it on. Yeah.
You said it was about that you were aware of how far away it was 8 inches from your body. That's interesting. I believe, I could be wrong, but it's about the level of the astral layer. Like in consciousness, I think that's right about the astral layer. So it sounds like a lot was happening on that level.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, that was weird. I still don't know what it is, but.
I feel like the lesser cities, they're way more feminine. You know, the clairs are really feminine, whereas the greater cities, like the levitation and teleportation, that's so masculine. That's so action. You know, that's movement, and which is funny.
Yes.
I joke around with the guys in my.
Going back to the snakes, I think the black snake, isn't it the masculine, and it's the horizontal energy.
The black is the feminine.
Is it?
Is what I remember, yeah. The black is the feminine.
And then the gold. Oh yes, of course. The gold is the vertical and the masculine. Okay. Yes, because the feminine is from the earth. Gotcha. Now I'm still going back to my levitation experience with the doorknob.
Yeah, sure.
With the doorknob and the horizontal. The horizontal and the vertical, yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm sorry if I've got that on a loop, but I just. It's just you don't know how important, reading this and just like How relevant this was for me.
Even I did when I read the drops. I was like, "Oh, Sarah must be, really happy about reading this." Yeah.
Totally.
Because I
wow.
also had and I was talking about this to Pamela. I also had an experience during a hypnosis, which was a past life. It was
Regression.
a regression to find out why I was here. And what happened was these hands of light came down with a book of light. And when that came, I saw some figures. I saw the Anubis. I saw a pharaoh. I saw a face that came out of the veil like Nefertiti, but she wasn't Nefertiti. And Pamela told me, "Oh, that's Maat. And she told me that I have an aspect of Mayat, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. And then on my left appeared this Egyptian male. I couldn't see his face, but I saw his body. And but he wasn't totally Egyptian. I had a sense that he was, from another planet maybe. And then he came with this vase. And it was like holographic form. He came with this black triangular vase that had some gold inscriptions on it, which weren't hieroglyphics. They were some other kind of language. And he started, and it was on a round saucer. And I thought, what's a triangular vase doing on a round saucer? So, and it was black, like black onyx. And he started pouring something on my third eye. And I felt, like the book said, I felt this thick liquid pour through my brain and through my muscles, and it felt so heavy. And what Pamela said was that was actually the red liquid that this book that Mary talks about. Yeah, but as soon as I felt it, I was like a little bit in pain, and it was like so heavy and intense. It was going down my body through my whole body, and I felt so dense. And I started saying, "Oh, it's I'm feeling pain," and the therapist started taking me out of it. I was so mad.
You missed it.
Yeah, I was so mad.
You'll access it again.
Yeah, so she told me that.
It's interesting because I seem to be able to recreate the experience with sugar sometimes.
Interesting.
That feeling through my blood.
Yeah.
It's not very comfortable.
Yeah, that happens to me definitely with sugar as well. Yes, and with carbohydrates like pasta would do that to me as well. But I also do have it when I get a healing session or an activation session. At the end of that session, I feel swollen and heavy. And I had one healer who she just snapped her fingers around me, and it was totally gone.
Wow.
But anyway, Pamela said that was an initiation for an awakening. And she said that he wasn't done. He was supposed to come with the white liquid and pour it over my third eye as well, just like the book describes. So I was like, oh, wow. And so, so here I am waiting for another for the second part of that. So I was sick for like 6 months with fibromyalgia symptoms after that session.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how about we get together and do our own initiation?
Yes, that would be cool.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
what about the book? What have you got next for us?
Looks like.
Marissa?
Oh, okay. So, I thought the part was very interesting where he goes to the what was it, an abbey or something like that. He meets
Yes, that story is amazing.
Yes, the by location. That was very interesting because, like I said, I've never experienced that or seen anyone do that. So I thought, oh my gosh, that's very that's very interesting. What interesting people, and
I didn't read that. I didn't read that portion.
Yeah, he went to that island.
Just of Assisi, the cathedral. That's where he was located at. That's what he was talking about. Because St. Francis of Assisi was known to be able to levitate. So I thought that was fascinating as well.
So what did he say? What did he say about bilocation?
Well, basically, the bilocation story is where he goes to, is it Alaska? He goes to Alaska, and he's going to do this lecture somewhere out really in the back of beyond. And there's a very particular little, poorly accessible little island that he wants to get to, where there's a beautiful little old chapel. And it was quite remarkable how placid and calm the tides were for a very relaxed and easy crossing, which the locals were saying, this is just, like, this is special. This is special. Like, just today, when you're coming to visit, this is free and easy for you to access.
Oh.
So it was remarkable. It was remarkable that he was having an easy passage to the island, and then he meets the quite young head priest, and goes on a tour. And the priest is impressed with Tom Kenyon's ability to see, in terms of a shaft, a big column of golden light where this saint had been buried.
Oh.
And then later on, the priest has it's a bit like the joke is on Tom, where he takes him somewhere, leaves him there, disappears. Tom goes outside, and there he is on the boat.
Oh.
And he has no way of and the lady on the boat just does this sort of wry smile, as if like, oh yeah, he pulled one of his tricks, did he? Kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So that's what that little story was about.
Right, because apparently the priests had no way of getting to the land, to shop for groceries or anything, and so that's how they did it. Apparently, they just bilocated over there, and I guess
all the time. It's like,
oh, whatever, they were used to it.
Interesting.
So what was, I forget now, what was his point introducing that story? Do you remember, Marissa?
I think it was just when he was talking about the cities, and so because one of the greatest cities is
bilocation.
Location. So I think that's. And he also interesting. I think it was a yogi who asked for lots of food to be brought to him to have a huge meal, and then he went into a trance. And it's because he one of his students or followers was dying in the desert, and his last wish was he didn't want to starve. He wanted to feel full, or whatever you want to call it, when he died. So this yogi,
he wants to be satiated.
Yes, so this yogi ate, projected, and then he helped him fulfill the desire before dying. And I thought,
because if he did not fulfill that desire, that was going to pull him back, and he wasn't going to progress to the next level of consciousness.
It would have put him back in the wheel of reincarnation. Yes.
So he stuffed himself with a crazy amount of food, and must have transmuted that, empathically transmuted that sensation to his student, so that his student wouldn't be stuck on the plane of desire. Which is really, right? Really sweet story.
That must be why they ask for a last wish on TV when they're going to hang somebody.
I didn't think of that. That sounds like what it is. The last meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a reference to Jesus and the bread too.
Also, yes.
And I think what it shows is the alchemy of having a container. You know what I mean? I think that's why he was telling these stories, to show what alchemy is.
I see.
I see. And then next along in the book, if I hope I'm not stealing your steam here, Marissa. I'm just just running on in enthusiasm. Is that he talks about this meditation, very simple way of charging the car body with energy, and that is directly from the sun.
Yes, I like that part.
You read that? Did you read that, Donna?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what about you, Lindsay? Where are you up to? You there?
I'm actually, yes, I'm here. Sorry. I'm actually just getting up to that point. I just got done reading the yogi story and the clairsentient and the bilocation. Like, I was in that section, which I just find completely fascinating. As someone who has clara abilities, just that's kind of where we get it from, and it's a great understanding between what do we tap into to utilize those gifts, and I think that's very much so explained, a really good explanation of the how, the process of, you know, it's not we just grab it, it's the energetic process, and that to me is really great closure in that question for myself of how, because as humans we want to know how, and this book taps into the how on a level that we're able to
yes, to repeat.
And to understand, So I had a go at drawing the energy of the sun into my solar plexus and into my car body, and I got squelch, nada. But I guess practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
No, quite often I do some of these practices and go on and leaps and bounds, and my ego feels fantastic, you know. Not on this occasion. I've got a lot more work to do there.
Well, it's interesting because what he said, what I thought was perfect, was that, you know, you without a mental understanding regarding the Ka, it is unlikely that one would be able to utilize its extraordinary abilities. But on the other hand, he says, if one possesses a strong Ka without a spiritual understanding of its significance, then the Ka cannot be fully utilized. So there really has to be a balance of the mental and the spiritual emergence, again, all of that. So I thought that was I liked that, because I think a lot of the times we get out of the mental states, or we may not feel comfortable there because we're so in the different areas of consciousness with our abilities and with healing and things like that. But the mental is absolutely important as well. That whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Edgar Casey emphasized that the mind was a tool. The mind was a tool to use to direct and to create. He emphasized the mind, so that was very different from what, you know, the New Age spirituality says about the mind, or the Eastern.
What I love is how Tom Kenyon here reinforces the idea that we see written many other places and expressed many other places, that the brain is where intention and everything etherical meets matter.
Yes, yes. The mind
where
and
the
brain.
Newtonian meets the quantum world.
Right, right.
Because and this was beautifully expressed, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that part too.
So where was that? Because that's really worth underlining and reading again and again, in my opinion. I just love that
definitely.
Bit. Does everyone know the bit I mean?
Yes, I know.
This modern day with duality of that struggle of trying to these gifts that we can't see or understand, and then the science behind it. I think it really is emergence of both to allow a closure, allow this idea that we can be both simultaneously, because I know personally I didn't find that in my spirituality before.
Right,
that was avoided, that was never talked about. And when you start talking about this, you start realizing how powerful it is. You understand, like, it was not right that they hid this information.
Yes.
At the same time, it's such powerful information. And it answers my question of why do certain individuals and certain religious entities have this knowledge when it should be common knowledge. You teach this, and then you teach personal responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's so wonderful to have that emergence of both the science and the spirit together now.
Yes.
Understand the beautiful unity that it can bring. And now this power is mine.
Yes.
But now I'm held to a higher standard of responsibility now that I have access to this knowledge. I think as we incarnate more and have more etherical knowledge, we are held to a higher standard of being able to utilize it for the greater good rather than for personal gain.
Oh, very much, very
Exactly.
much so. I've been noticing that a lot in different communities, that the people, I feel like people are, especially in September, a lot of people just got confused, they got overwhelmed, they didn't know what was happening, and there wasn't a balance there. You know, people got way polarized. And I feel like now there's a lot more settling. But yes, I'm definitely trying.
Which is a lot like when planets transit, and there's a kind of wobble where things get a little shaky. One last gasp before we turn direct again, say. And that had a sensation of a little bit of a shake-up before motion changed direction.
Right, and I'm glad you brought up astrology, actually, because there was a lot going on that influenced us. A lot of like differing of viewpoints. I think it was Pisces involved with I want to say Venus. I could be wrong. I can't remember right. I'm still a novice with it. I've been studying it a lot, but I'm still very much a novice. But in my group, in another astrology group, we've been talking about those energies, and it was definitely very real, and it really shook a lot of people up. It was like we were all thrown into a blender. So now I think everyone's kind of staggering out, and they're making more of a foundation, I hope, for what they know, or they're relearning, or you know what I mean. I think everyone's trying to go back to basics. At least I am for my studies. I'm just trying to go back to basics.
I got overwhelmed with the details of origins of this aspect of energy and this aspect of energy, and it's really one of those of trying to, like, you see a lot of grounding techniques in this book, a lot of ways to be able to kind of refocus so you don't lose focus of where you're going with your ka energy and just your energy in general. So I think it's been fantastic in giving tools, and that's the biggest thing. What tools are you given, and how are you utilizing them?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I saw a lot of people without focus, without direction, and getting fixated on labels and sources, and which is fine. That's fine, but I feel like there needs to just be more of a purpose there. That's what I'm trying to do. In myself and others, I want to give people the tools. I want to teach. If we get fixated on the labels, then we're losing sight of purpose, and then a lot of confusion could come across too. So what I do personally, when I learned about my sources and all of that, which I think is really good information, and everyone should dive into that. But I did some studying, and I recognized a lot of the things in myself, and then I'm using that. I'm trying to use that for purpose.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I haven't done that yet. I have no idea. I have some ideas of things that really resonate with me, like women archers. For some reason. Sorry.
Archers.
Women archers.
Like Diana.
Oh, okay.
Or warrior princesses, Athene, owls.
Right.
And when I linked Athene to, now who was it who gave us all this information? Was it Bo? No, who was it?
Jewel?
No, Jewel. Yes, Jewel. Thank you, Jewel. Thank you so much, Jewel. Relating various of the later Hellenic mythologies to the Egyptian ones, and that's when I realized my link to Isis, because that's Athene. Oh my goodness! And then I looked up all the symbols and the associations with Isis, and I was like, I'm painting a lotus flower, and I'm snakes, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm like,
yes, because we have a lot of what would you call them, archetypes, or we have these symbols that are universal, and like you
Yes,
having that
and
experience.
it's that expression. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yes, because I've had dreams and visions with all these symbols and related to Egyptian. So it was really good understanding these aspects that I had, because they had been expressing in my life, my whole life. So it was really good that I was able to learn, that these aspects are associated with me. And I think I got a lot of, understanding from that, and a lot of things really clicked in my life.
Not to mention your husband, who is what's his name?
Seth. Seth, yeah.
I mean, like, you can't get more direct than that, right?
I released so much from that, because nothing was making sense. It was like I was like, I'm not creating this. God, I am not. The only way I created it was him. I mean, the only way I created this was by marrying him. That was it. But so much made sense, because the man is relentless. So that really released a lot for me.
When you were telling that story, Marianne, and you were telling us all about that, something that kept coming to my mind was that phrase that you hear often in Christianity, which is that the devil seeks to confuse.
Yes.
And that and when you're up against someone who is all sorts of I want to say crazy, but I want to be very careful with this term.
Irrational is irrational.
No, I'm talking about
maniac.
these people with personality disorders.
Yes.
And their main instrument of control is through confusion.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right?
I know what you're talking about. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I take a long time to get to the point, but I get there.
Yeah. No, it's just that I forgot what the confusion was about. Definitely.
Yes, it was literally, and that sounds to me like what SET is about.
Yes.
And
he specifically said, I was trying to help him with something for work, and I didn't understand it because it didn't make any sense. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to make sense of this. You have to write it like this. And he's like, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. And I'm like, why won't you want clarity? And he says, no, because confusion is the glue to deception. I'm paraphrasing, but he explained that if you let them get confused, because that way they don't know what to think, and the brain gets tired when you can't figure something out. So you look for the easiest.
I know it.
Easiest
something
understanding.
you and I have in common, Marianne. I think we've come up against this personality.
And then I saw it everywhere. Then I saw, oh yeah, this person does that, and that person does that, and that's how they manipulate. That's how they, is through that. And so that made so much sense in my life, because I was like, I was constantly confused with this man, and it was through this confusion that I allowed many things to happen.
And of course, because it occupies your mind so much that you take your consciousness away from your guidance system, which is your emotions, which is telling you, this is so wrong.
Exactly.
But you're so involved with these crazy labyrinth of detail.
Exactly. I love the way you express. Yes.
Right. That you're just completely lost.
Yes. Exactly. So that really.
Yeah. Will want to complete something. We want to feel that we're not giving up. We want to see something to completion.
Yes.
I think in the whole cosmic paradigm of everything, we have to learn to let that go, because
and also those personality types rely on you having constant hope.
Yes.
Yep.
Constantly feeding you just that little bit of what you're so desperate for, that it's worth waiting for the next little little whatever morsel of right.
Yep.
I was talking to my son about that.
Sorry, Donna?
I was talking to my son about that this morning. Like how much time we waste or loops in our brain get created because we call work and we don't feel good. So we call in and we say, we give this long explanation instead of just saying, I can't come in, I'm taking a sick day. And that's all my oldest son gives. And then he doesn't have to answer no questions. His brain don't do this loop all day wondering if people believed him.
Yeah. Yes.
By which, towards the end of the day, you've been constructing such a miraculously believable tale that you believe it yourself.
Yes. Yes.
That's right. So we were talking about that. Like somebody, a guy, and a guy used to do this to me. He would call me up and say, what do you want to do today? And after a month or two, I noticed he said no to every suggestion. So one day when I was there, I named 8 things, and he said no to each one. And I realized that because he did this, he could create a good guy story. His own brain. I always asked her what she wanted to do.
The illusion of choice. Yeah.
I had no choice.
Yes.
So he should have been calling me and saying, Donna, do you want to do this today? Because then it gives you a yes or a no.
Right. Right.
Like my first husband, somebody who wants to cheat on you. And this is really a crazy one. He would lie, he would deny, he would apologize, he would stop drinking, start staying home, be a really good father, husband, man for 3, 4, 6 months. Then a friend would come over, talk him into going out, and he would fall back into that single man pattern.
Yeah.
And it would go back and forth. At the end, when I was finally able to say, this is it, he said to me that he wanted an open relationship. Because he cheated on me, and I knew it. And I said, I know you did. I told him exactly what he did, because I saw the whole thing of it. And I said, fine, we can have an open relationship. So open is called a divorce. Anyway, a month or so later, I start seeing another man. He was going to that man's house, starting fights, coming to my house, kneeling, pleading, because he thought I never would leave. And so it still bounced back to me that I kept excusing people's words, behaviors when I first met them. I would see and feel things inside me that said, this ain't really what I want. And instead of walking away and saying, this isn't me, I just, okay, if you do this, but this isn't for me, I would excuse it. I would internalize it to say I was judging them.
Exactly.
I need to loosen up and let go, and I need to be permissive and trust and all that stuff.
Give them more of a chance, and
I wonder what the male equivalent of doing that stuff is. Because wherever we have our story, our drama, there's always the corresponding polarity for men, and this is where we're missing Bo, really, or any other men. Yeah, come back, or any other men in this discussion. And incidentally, one of my such a hard time saying this. My ambition is this is right. Take this slowly. What I really want to do, the reason why I've been focused on being psychic, is because I want to use it to see different perspectives, male and female, and present those experiences.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And
that's wonderful.
I guess it's not so. It's it's fairly commonplace that men and women want to write about the other's point of view. That's been done over and over and over. I just wonder how many people have been deliberately using claircognizance and clairsentience and all the clairs to achieve that end. So I think there's some. Yeah, I have my Mars and Venus squaring each other in my chart and stuff. And I think.
Okay.
Sorry, Marissa, what?
I said okay. No, that's interesting.
Yes.
Oh, that has a lot of value, I believe. Yes, definitely.
Because interestingly, because one of the things that kind of unite us all here in this group, up to a point, is a certain level of victimization, right? And of course, Mary Magdalene herself has come to represent the divine feminine, and you cannot talk about the divine feminine and her emergence and her regaining her power without talking about the struggle of victimization by men. And the very peculiar and interesting, rather unique circumstance in my household was that my stepfather was it was a very violent relationship, and my mother would antagonize him to a point where he would hit her, and somehow out of all of that, I thought that the genesis of the violence actually laid with her. Bizarrely.
Yeah.
And
I blame my mother too.
My mother forced me to take sides, and she was the one hitting me, not my stepfather. He was never violent to us, the children, ever. So as far as I was concerned, she was the violent one. And so unusually, for a woman in that situation, I did not side with my mother at all. And so a lot of the story I want to tell is about the man's side of that story. Because
I did the same.
We cannot fully become conscious in our divine feminine aspect without taking responsibility for every itsy bitsy little tiny step along that path where somehow we allowed that victimization or even played a game, which was, I thought my mother was playing a power game, where she had the ultimate final word. Oh, but you hit me. You victimized me. Therefore, I am ultimately always in the right. And that is precisely the snapping point. The ultimate level of control that you can have over anyone is the psychological. And men traditionally have used physical violence, and then we need to talk about women's psychological violence.
Absolutely. I think it's so unbalanced right now, especially if you want to take rape culture into it, or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it, or victimization. I feel like right now there's so much. Everyone's throwing out the masculine, the divine masculine. They're being shamed some ways. I feel like there's just it's a very odd imbalance right now with that whole thing. I feel like it's going into.
There's a pendulum that's been swinging.
Yeah.
I think I think my perspective is I don't see masculine, feminine. I see a person. I see someone is disempowered. I see someone abusing power.
Yes.
And to me, it's trying to be compassionate it's not right. It's never right, and it's never okay. Why? Where at your point in your life did you get to that point that's how you're coping, or was that ever made okay to ever violate another human being, whether it be mentally, physically, sexually, psychologically? At what point in our humanity did we say that that was okay to disempower? It's okay to disagree. You can agree to disagree. You can not even agree, but you don't get to invalidate somebody else because you're angry, you're mad. How can we help you feel empowered and give you tools? And it's analyzing those deep, dark secrets within yourselves of where is that coming from, and casting judgment, because I think we forget there is judgment in analyzing, especially when you put masculine and feminine. If you take that away, you then now have no judgment. You have a human being who has probably made a wrong choice. At least that's my perspective of
I agree with that. I mean, I think men can have the same problems as us. First place, I think that empaths, especially, others take it as being naive. Because you feel their feelings, you know their needs before they ask. So you're so giving. But it's like my ex-husband, for example, right? Now, we got married at 21. At 23, 24, rather than wait till 29 to tell me the truth. I cannot handle being married with only one person. I didn't go have enough experiences. I will be a good father, parent with you, but I want to be single. I do still love you. Now, wouldn't that have been a kinder thing than yelling and me keep asking, don't you love me? I want to answer here.
Exactly.
It's the hiding things. It's the thinking, I'm going to have to pay for this. I wouldn't have made him pay for it. I can understand that. But he didn't ever go on to love anyone else.
Also, but weren't you both trying to conform to a societal norm?
That's what I was going to say. I think a big part of it was that probably. That it's not okay. Like what you said is perfect. That would be ideal, but in our society, I think that's frowned upon. So a lot of us are afraid to do that because oh my gosh.
Especially back then.
Oh yeah.
Things are freeing up a bit more now, but
I don't know. I mean,
no, but what she's saying, what Donna's saying, is that he just needed to tell her what he really felt. He just needed to express his truth, and then there would have been a decision where they could live separately, right? And still love your children. Not create such chaos. The same with mine. He could have just told me he didn't want to be with me, and then okay, fine, I'm fine with that. Just be a good, normal person. Treat me with respect. Treat my children with respect. If you want to see them, you don't want to see them, but just tell me what you want, and we can live in harmony. That's what you're saying, Donna, right?
Yeah.
I know, because that's exactly how I felt. But
I felt misled. I felt somebody
you're lied to.
forcing me
You're lied to.
lies and manipulation to be like a slave. I had to be goody two-shoes. I could go visit my mommy while he went out and did whatever he wanted. I was forced to be submissive, just like my mother, my grandmother, and woman for a long time.
And society enforced those attitudes, and that's the thing. I think today we can tell society to mind your own business. If it's not hurting myself or others, my family structure is none of your business. Back then, I think everything was about, is it conforming to what society says?
Because it's a patriarchal society. But still, there has been still an imbalance, and the imbalance is that the male energy took over. So we can't dismiss that. Because that's been the problem all along, is that there's been an imbalance. The scale was tipped, and it was tipped on the side of the male. The male was controlling everything, controlling society, controlling laws, controlling rules, and controlling the woman. So we can't dismiss that. Right there's victimization. There's victimization there on a whole worldwide scale, on a planetary scale. because, you know, because of that influence, because of that energy, because of that force, which male is action.
I'd like to tell a bit of the story of how disadvantaged and disempowered and unfulfilled men were in this in arrangement as well. Because from these kind of superficial exterior, it looks like women suffered always, and they did. But I would like to put forward the arguments to explain, you know, the men's
sure.
That, which was, you know,
the men were also being driven by the super male that were in control of everything. So and
the violence amongst themselves. Come on, I mean,
right.
You look at the statistics of who's suffering from what violence, and it's I mean, it's mind blowing. It's heartbreaking.
But the source is still the male, you know, the male rule. The males were ruling the males, and they were ruling the females. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It might just be a little bit more complex than that, though.
You know, where did it? Supposedly, women were.
It was nominally so. It was nominally so. Okay. Yeah. Now I don't know if we can just switch the discussion to another little tack for a moment, so I can give you an example. Have you ever come across machismo?
Oh yeah.
To the degree, yes, but to the degree that you realized that the true genesis, the worst perpetrator of all, was who taught the young man to be that way was the mother.
I know what you're talking about. I know your angle.
Right? So
yes,
I'm just
definitely.
saying that the whole thing is just a little bit more complex than all that.
But not so necessarily, because you still have the father figure there. You still have the macho father figure within the family nucleus.
But did you see how that patriarchal demon was equally created by the women and perpetuated by the women? Because otherwise, why weren't the women teaching their sons
because they're not allowed, because they're not allowed by the other rulers. Because they're not allowed.
No, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. I think it's because the woman herself was so infused, so absolutely ubiquitously permeated herself right up into her core with this energy, that she would teach that to her children equally, just as much as the men would
allow it. I know, and
I agree with you on that. And this idea that I think we don't realize we victimize other women, or in that fact of, well, if you're unhappy, just work it out. I know that, you know, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. We raise our children, but we've always been taught, we'll try to fix it, you know, we've never been taught to be empowered to leave or change it. You know, I know personally in my marriage, when I asked, it was, well, you created this problem, now you fix it. And I said, well, I'm going to get a divorce. And they're like, well, that's your problem. I was never empowered as to be able to say, you know, are you truly unhappy? Like, what can we do to help you feel better in this situation? You know, a lot of in the 50s and 60s, women were just expected. You would have meetings of happy, but nobody was ignoring each other to say, well, leave. What do we do to fix it?
But that's the thing.
Fix it itself is masculine,
but you can't do that unless you know. You can't do that unless you know how. If you're not taught how, if your mother and father taught you this way, then that's what you're teaching. You know, that's all you know. You can't teach something that you don't know. So we're getting this information from fathers and mothers who don't know how to teach us not to be victims, how to teach us
well, we can break the cycle by tuning in to our emotional guidance system and perform some alchemy.
Exactly.
Perform some alchemy.
But that information
and get back on track.
Exactly.
I know. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
You know.
It really does all tie in, because it you know, near the end of where I was reading, it talks about kind of a responsibility, you know, with these powers. We can't just play around. Like, for instance, And also the fact that just because you reach a certain level, a spiritual level, doesn't mean you don't have psychological issues.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? A lot of people.
On the contrary, people talk about how they are magnified.
Yes, yes.
Because your power of manifestation is so heightened that your psychodramas come at you. Which I don't know if any of you identify with me there.
Well, like she
my
explained,
manifestation of my family psychodramas in my relationships have been nothing short of revolting.
Well, you know, what I'm trying to not. This conversation will make so much sense when you all get to the end of the book, because I've read the whole book.
Oh,
Oh, are you in agony, Lois, listening to this, going, ah?
No, but I
Show us a hint. Are we on the right track at least with our thought processes?
yes. And it will become ultimately clear why this conversation is happening now.
Awesome! I love that.
Wow.
all right.
We're on track, guys.
Yeah, I'm sitting here being like, well, I want to be respectful and let them share. But two things I want to tell you that don't give away the end of the book is, number one, all of these societal trends has been happening when people were not in touch with their authentic self.
Yes.
That is one part of the whole problem, that we haven't got to a point where no matter what society says, we finally understand how we feel, independent of everyone else.
Yes, we need to be emotional beings.
Many changes happen. And also, the whole thing of duality with male and female is it's not designed to always go smoothly. It's always designed to cause reaction, which again is the alchemy that we're talking about in the book. So all of these things that are causing you guys to go back and forth, and I felt this and this happened to me, it's all, if you think of it as a chemical reaction to break open the atom of yourself so that you can fully expand, it all makes sense. But we take it so small and personal that we're wounded emotionally instead of letting it build us into the energetic being that we're supposed to become.
And that's what the awakening is all about.
Yes.
And heading towards
Why
integration.
this is all happening.
Yes. But it does not negate the feelings that you feel while you're going through the process. Those are very important and they're very personal and they need to be respected. But only, I think, now that we're getting to the time that we're in and the expression that we are so fortunate to have now, can we really look back and say, whoa, now I can put this in context, and now let's see what I can make with it.
Yes, what's that lovely Thich Nhat Hanh quote? Even now, I can, in the present moment, I can, it's about looking back with new glasses.
And I think once we find...
to the point where you can actually recreate your past, in a sense.
Yes, because it then can become psychologically reframed in your mind to have a meaning it couldn't have before because you didn't have the knowledge for it before.
Yes.
The context too, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is why we talk about lifting the veils.
And that moment right now where we're all sitting here going, oh, I kind of see, that's alchemy. That's emotional alchemy acting out right now.
Yes, because
we're all putting little things together and going, oh, okay, and there's something to come, there's something I can look forward to, there's going to be another chemical reaction, and it's all going to fit together.
Yeah, what you're talking about, I think that will never be any different ever. I don't think it's different in physicality, and I don't think it's different after, when we're in spirit, because it doesn't look like it ever ends, because it started somehow. There's a cause of this somehow. Like, for instance, Atlantis...
Because we're not source anymore. We're split up.
But even as source, when we emerge from source, we started all this to begin with. So there's a beginning there. There's an initiation there somewhere, and that's why, like, I would love to know what that was about, but I don't think I never will, because even in, even the reason why we're here was because we emerged from source, and we must have acted in some way to get here from the beginning. So
what if every single human's reason for being here is different from everyone else's? What if there's not one reason?
Sure.
How could there be a dualistic environment?
Right, but I still go back to the beginning, and I'm like, okay, well, we emerged from one place, and we were pretty much emerging, I'm assuming, at one time or at different times, but from the same source. So there's an emptiness there. You know what I mean? Like, there's an empty glass there. So what caused it to be filled with all this? You know what I'm saying? Because it's interesting. There's one thing that Mary Magdalene says at the end, that she says that, she's speaking from where she is, and she says that she's sitting here. The place where she is actually her soul. I don't know if you guys remember that part where she speaks that where I am now, I am in my soul. It's in heaven, but heaven is really your soul. So she's sitting in her soul, and she has the consciousness of Joshua with her. She feels and she remembers all these memories, and she ends with saying that she feels that she's still in that state where she is, which I consider higher than mine, right? In that sense, she's still feeling the bittersweetness of those memories. She's still feeling the love that she felt as a human being in those memories. So that's kind of like, that makes me have a lot of other questions. Of, if she's if she's done this, she's completed this whole thing, and she's who she is right now, and she's in her soul, she's still having all these memories and all these feelings. So I wonder.
That's true. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that exact part in the book.
Yeah,
I can't recall that.
I put the page down, but I can't see my notes. Yeah, I wrote it down. So that really gets me, like, what is that all about? It's like, so for me, that's sort of like, and I've been thinking about this a lot in the last few years. For me, there's sort of like a state that we're always going to be in, it seems, and it seems like it's from the beginning that we have this. And like they say, okay, we were given the will, and we were given choices. So it's almost as if we're always going to be in this, in this state of choosing and watching our actions. Like, we got to watch our actions. We got to be mindful of what we do to each other. You know what I'm saying? Because we have this power of doing whatever we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well,
Sorry.
That means, like, we come here to serve others or serve self.
Yeah.
So some of us want to know how it feels to be loved, and some want to know how it feels to give love. Like, I read this the other day. Weird. It was this guy that murdered a woman and her child. I don't remember. I think he was on death row. And he explained his story growing up. His stepfather beat him and would say, "This is for your own good." So to him giving love equated hurting other people for their own good.
Yes.
And until he did this, murdered a woman and child, her mother went and visited him all the time in jail. And she forgave him and loved him. And that was the first time in his entire life that he understood that perceptual difference. Now, and a lot of parents do that. This is for your own good. And Teal talked about that this week in the interview too. And what that does to children growing up. So some children are demanded upon them oh, you need to forgive it. You need to forget it. Cut it out now. And then another set of children are told the opposite, not to take it. To be loving means to be strict, hard, and mean. So that's two very different things.
Yes.
So that always makes conflict. So we have friends that are like us, and we can talk to them. But then when we go to have a relationship, whichever sex we are, we're going to pick somebody on the opposite end of that pole. So you are attracted by it, but then you get repelled at times.
That's a good way of putting it. Exactly. That's where a lot of the conflict could come from, but it's what we yearn for at the same time.
Because we want to learn to understand the other perspective. And that's from both people. Because they're there to teach you to love yourself, to say no, and to say, no, this isn't for me. I needed to be taught that because growing up I was told like there's no me. Me that is giving to everybody and feeling every perspective and never my own.
Right.
And every time I felt my own and I got mad and threw it off, I was told I was wrong. I was being selfish and mean. So it's to integrate those two.
That really resonates too. And a lot of what I think it comes down to is what I always go back to, at least when you think of the why of it and the why are we here, the why this and that. What comforts me, at least, is knowing that we're here to experience. We're not necessarily, happiness is the goal, but we're here to experience. We're not here to simply experience happiness or enlightenment, or, you know what I mean? It's a part of the journey. That's what we're here for. And I think too many of us go, oh, I'm not supposed to feel sad. I'm not supposed to be mad. I'm not, I'm far away from source when I feel these things. But we can't shame ourselves that way, because we have to forgive ourselves for feeling those things, because we're here to feel those things. If we don't, we're missing out on the entire whole spectrum of the experience.
Yes.
Yeah, well, what could Creator feel if all this wasn't here? Nothing. It would just sit there and go, I don't know what love is either.
Right.
So part of me understands the Old Testament where God killed everybody because he wasn't happy because they weren't appreciating. But then what? The angels went, hello, we're going to be here all alone because we're never going to create the perfect people. And then they're clones, they're robots. So they need to learn how experience. So as we learn to love, and as we learn what feels better and what doesn't, so does Creator, so does Source.
It's just, I just think it's so comforting for times when you are feeling those, negative emotions. You go, well, it's experiential. It's all part of the process, and it's okay. And you don't have to be stuck in that one state either. It's very fluid.
I also think part of it is the feeling. It's what you do with those feelings. I think that's a big aspect of everything. We are learning and growing. To shame someone for feeling is just horrible to me. That's a soul killer. But
yes, absolutely.
What I teach my daughter is it's okay to feel these feelings. It's completely okay. In fact, please feel them, because I want you to identify with feelings and with others. It's what you do in that process and the intention behind those feelings. My daughter's 5 years old, but it's just one of those that I don't ever want to invalidate her feelings, her inner child, and I feel that at this point in life we're in a society that is starting to shift towards that personal, respecting of your own feelings, this individuality. of being authentic self. Well, being authentic self is feeling authentic feelings.
Yes.
How are you going to act with the community with those feelings is the question then. It puts that personal responsibility on you, not on the person that inflicted it, on you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what men are raised not to feel. Men are raised to not pay attention to their feelings, to not feel, and that's probably where the masculine energy took over, because it was nurtured. The masculine energy was nurtured more than their feminine side. So this is where this.
Except, sorry, I'm jumping in completely without knowing what you're talking about. But
no problem.
There's the shadow side of the masculine, and then there's the exalted side of the masculine. The exalted male is in touch with his feelings.
Yes.
Okay.
He's in touch with his desires.
Yes.
He's in touch with his wants.
Feelings. It should be ideally, but and the masculine energy that's in control now is the shadow of masculine energy. I quite often find myself speaking for the divine masculine.
I do the same. You do the same.
Because we're talking about the shadow aspect of masculine energy here, and
it's the responsibility.
It's a bit like when you've got someone on trial and you say the supposed crime, the presumed incident, whatever.
Right, alleged.
Like the chicken or the egg, which came first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I think.
Sorry, I had to jump out of that there. Oh, it was breaking my heart to miss the discussion. But,
for me, it's the responsibility of the action. You are that rock. There is a ripple. What you made that ripple, whether it be your emotions, whether it be your actions. That to me is what I focus on at this point in time, because I see that has the biggest impact on my community around me. Is that focus of my action and my emotion, and they go hand in hand because one is triggered by the other or vice versa.
Yeah, it's a lot of miscommunication, and to me, I don't know. Did the chicken or the egg come first? I don't know.
I know.
It's the way the two come together and clash. Women being married, to me, like a man talking to you, hurting your feelings. This girl tried to talk me into going to bed with her. This, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to go with another woman because I want oral sex, or whatever. Rather than communicating in a decent way, most men do not do that. And I think that women see those kind of things as cheating or looking at porn. But even that, why are women doing porn? Why are they prostitutes? Why are they nude dancing? Why are there women that want to take a married man away from a wife and think it's hilarious?
Because it's their shadows.
Because it is ourself doing it to us.
Well, part
so
of that is
you can't just blame men. You can't.
But part of that has been because of the feminine movement, which our pendulum was swinging one way, extremely one way. Now, because of the feminine movement, the pendulum is swinging the other way. So you know how the pendulum has to swing all the way to the extreme before it goes back into the middle. Mm-hmm. So now, because of our repression, because of being oppressed and repressed, we have all these, feelings and wants and desires just, bursting forth. And in that bursting forth, we want to do it all and be all, and so the confusion is that now we become the men that we were running away from. now we become the men that we were, judging and not liking, and because now we've had this freedom that we never had before. So you have a lot of these women who I don't know how it started, but that they're just throwing themselves out there, they think that being equal is being how men were acting in that negative sense. They feel that equality.
I think it's a shadow of the female aspect.
Yeah, I think that pendulum has been swinging in the shadow side of male and female beings.
Yes.
Right.
And now we're at the point where we can start to shift it to swinging in the enlightened, authentic side of male and female beings.
Right.
And not hold it against each gender.
Mm-hmm.
Because
But now
that's polarity consciousness.
Exactly.
That's polarity. To
and
look
we
at
can't make the women the light and the men the dark, because that doesn't work when we're all in shadow.
Also, because we are ultimately all one, and we don't even have to be so distant and talk about how we're ultimately all one. We are one organic being, masculine
and we
feminine.
tend to forget that women do this to other women, just in a group of friends, just in conversations even. There's a lack of authenticity.
Yes.
And there's a lack of communication.
Yeah.
And so even the stories that we choose to bring up almost can sometimes be looked at, like if I were a psychologist sitting on in the wings, we're talking about victimization when we're talking about a book that's supposed to be freeing us from it. But yet we're still staying in that conversation.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier.
That's the state that we're in. That's the state that we're dealing with. So we have to start from there, from the state that we are, and recognizing what we are first in order to change it, to move from there. It's like acknowledging your shadows, acknowledging your beliefs, looking for the hidden beliefs that are creating in your life. So we need to start from there. We need to know what our what our feelings are, where we are.
Yes and no, but how about looking a little bit, looking towards the balance, the equilibrium.
Oh yeah,
the utopia,
definitely.
Where you realize that this actual graduation between masculine and feminine that we've got is actually a glorious symbiosis that is mutually supportive, that is actually perfectly, divinely designed and orchestrated. And I'd love to look into that more. I'd love to shine a spotlight on how that works.
And that's what's been missing.
How that can work.
The whole missing
exalted masculine and how the exalted feminine come together, and what they're supposed to be doing, and what they can do, and what the potential is.
And that's what's been missing all along, which is.
And I think when we apply processes of alchemy to ourselves, when we begin with ourselves, then we can acquire new spectacles with which we can dissolve those veils.
Yes, because only each and every one of us can make that choice to say, okay, there's a whole lot more shadow I could look at, but I see the light right next to me. I'm stepping over, peeps. Bye. You've got to get to that point. Otherwise, you're going to swim in that murky shadow forever.
Well, there's got to be a focus. There's got to be a focus to move to.
Yeah, because you have to move towards what feels good, because that's what our emotional guidance system is designed for.
Well, tell that to my husband. Tell that to my husband, and he'll just continue. You can tell that to my husband. He'll just continue abusing because that's what feels good to him.
Right. That's why I don't necessarily agree with the theory of feel good, because
he doesn't really know what feels good.
Yeah.
There's no one.
That's why he needs to be aware of who he is first. He needs to be aware of what he's doing as compared to that target, as compared to that whole truth.
Because if he really, really tunes into how he really feels about a given situation, he will know and understand that what he is doing and what is abusive is not beneficial to him or anyone or anything in any given
circumstance. But he doesn't want to. But he simply doesn't want to.
No, of course not. That's why he's stuck where he is.
And he's aware of it too.
That's why he's
and unpacking. There is a huge difference, and I think some people don't know that difference between.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you say that again?
There's a big difference between processing, and there isn't a set time for process. I think people think that there should be a timeline, and there isn't. And unpacking, simply staying in there and holding on to that negativity and creating more blame. That's where your victimization comes into a cycle of, then you start seeing it in everything. Well, there's a difference between seeing it in everything and then recognizing it and saying, how can I change it? What can I do actively? And how can I move towards that light?
Or how can I disengage?
Yeah, exactly. Because you start...
Step out of.
Because if you start seeing it in everything, that can go either way. You will then become so bitter about it.
But then you need the information to do that.
Which is why we need to retreat into stillness and to quiet all this chatter, all this data about who's right, who's wrong, who did what to whom, and why.
Right or wrong.
And then wipe it clean. Wipe it clean and start again. That's what this alchemy is about and what it's for.
It's about nutrition. Nobody's asking you to eat the whole cheesecake. Take a bite so you know what it is, so you can identify it. Take 3 bites, but don't eat the dang cheesecake yourself, because then you're going to feel horrible. You're going to be so soaked up in it that you're going to need more help to move to that process. So it's all about moderation of, some people need a little bit more of that experience to get it. Others, they just need a little bit. And everybody knows themselves better. But don't dive in and eat the whole dang cheesecake and then be mad, because you should have bites. You can cut yourself a slice in moderation. I'm sorry about the cheesecake, but that's like the best.
I know, you're making me hungry. Great.
As a slice of pie, it is. It's
I like that analogy, actually. That's really fitting.
Have we ever reached to where we were supposed to have got to in the book in the course of the discussion?
135.
Yeah.
135, right? 135?
Like I said, I'm about 10 pages behind that. If somebody wanted to, kind of go over that little end cap there, that would be great.
So we got to the point where we talked about the absorbing of energy directly from the sun into the car body. Then we moved on to, he begins to talk about, he puts these alchemical practices in their historical context. Now, did anyone else find that fascinating? Because basically he talks about how, or am I skipping a bit here?
Is that when he goes into the gods? And he goes into the god myth? And
No. He's talking about... Yes, he is. Sekhem, the Uraeus, the chakras, the Jed. He's explaining all these terms. And then he goes on to explain how, at least where I got to, where he starts talking about the disregard for feminine enlightenment and power, and how dimly viewed it was by so many of these alchemical traditions, including the Taoist, the Buddhist, and even the Hindu. And this is what's so radical about this book and these methods and Mary Magdalene is just how this appears to be such an extraordinary exception, where the woman's experience and the importance of that nesting. Can we go back to that? After the sexual practices, how none of that is possible without the woman's role in that symbiosis, in that lovemaking. Because I guess I'm skipping ahead here accidentally, but I read about how in some of the traditions, a cursory look at the history of Christianity reveals patriarchal attempts at the disenfranchisement of women within the church, la 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 la. But it's not just that, in Tibetan Buddhism as well. And that for me was dynamite, because here it would seem this specific Egyptian alchemical tradition was like it was turning all the patriarchal stuff on its head, and that's I think that's extraordinary. I'm getting the impression maybe I've read on ahead further than some of you. Not.
Yes, I went up to 90.
Okay, so I'm skipping ahead. Sorry about that, but you'll love that bit where Tom Kenyon takes you on a tour of what other traditions were around at the time,
right,
purporting to do the same thing, but
right,
with one very, very important missing key, a missing piece of the puzzle, which is that if the woman does not feel respected, valued, safe, and cared for, and ultimately loved, none of this alchemy between the male and the female can truly come to any kind of purposeful and rewarding fruition.
Right.
And in fact, the supposed charging of the car body that the males are so trying to do in an egoic way, using the woman as a tool, as just as a kind of conduit for their own ends, leads them nowhere.
It's almost like it was a built-in safety mechanism to where it would not happen alchemically if there was not a mutual understanding of respect for the genders.
Not just the genders, but the people. We can go back to people now, right? You have two people coming together, and if you don't have that mutual respect, there's no progression.
Because you won't get to that ka body that leads you to the realm of immortality or that life after that you're looking for.
Yes, because ultimately what you're doing, what you're attempting to do energetically is merge. And there is no true merging when you have victimization.
Right, it's just leverage.
Yes, exactly. And that brings us back to like what is underpinning the discussion this evening, really.
Yes.
And yet she's still, I'm seeing the emphasis that she puts on that it's the female energy that balances the males in a way, although they merge. But what I see her repeatedly saying is that the female energy is what will energize his male energy. So
it's symbiotic. It feeds of itself. It's the chicken and the egg. The two necessary. And also, what's interesting is the mention of how it can happen between same-sex.
Exactly.
Right, because it's not about the gender. It's about the
exactly
about doing it.
It's about the alchemy between two people, whether and sex and gender actually are not. It's only because we're in a polarity paradigm that we need these constructs at all.
It is useful to point out, though, especially in this conversation, that we never hear that Mary Magdalene achieves the same state that Jesus does.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I didn't hear either.
We don't hear that Mary Magdalene achieves the same state as Jesus does through this process.
Well, I suppose you've read it all, so okay.
So this, and even just the very first story tells us that, because it tells us of her living on, not in a ka body, and then dying, and that last visit with him. So we know that her transition is not the same as his.
No, but then she didn't choose it, did she?
Well, and we don't know if she could have. I mean, that's not mentioned.
Well, would strengthening the Ka body just be an aspect of fulfilling your purpose then? I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily be enlightenment. Would it just be, so is that Mary's purpose?
She does say that it's enlightenment because she associates it with becoming the god Horus. When you achieve that state, you become a god.
Isis. You become Isis
soul.
and you become Horus. Yes.
Yeah.
It also, she would not be a match to Yeshua, though.
Horus is the product. Horus is the product of the sun and the moon. Horus is the product of Isis and Osiris.
Yes, so it's the combination.
So it's the combination to become your full consciousness, is how I read it. So, and you know, so that's why I pointed out the part where I was going to say that she found it important that the male had to nest within that feminine energy in order for his Ka body to receive it, to absorb it. Otherwise, he would remain in the action, having to do, instead of, you know, receiving the female that brings him a balance. So, you know.
I don't know if it's an opportune moment to say this, but I love you all so much.
Oh, I love you too. I'm so happy I'm here.
You know, the sharing that's been going on is just beautiful. Where's Lindsay? Did I miss her leaving when I was on the phone?
You know, I think her phone kind of goes in and out sometimes. That's my experience being on hand with her. So, but I mean, this is probably a good time to wrap it up. Anyways, we've been going about almost 3 hours now.
You're kidding me! Wow.
It went by really fast. I'm sure we all need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I wanted to. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I was just going to suggest we agree to where we're reading to next, but you go ahead.
Oh, I was just, before that, I wanted to just quickly read a couple of these paragraphs, which I think is a pretty good cap. He says, just because something is unconscious does not mean it cannot do harm. In point of fact, our unconscious motivations often do more harm than those of which we are conscious. This is one reason I believe that persons undertaking the path of alchemy need to become cognizant of their own psychological history and motivations. And I think that's just such an important passage in the book, and it's a good way to kind of cap it. It goes back to everything we kept going back to.
Yeah.
So it kind of wraps it up well. But yeah. So I think we said that we met a month ago. Is that right? 4 weeks ago, about, or was it longer?
Just over, I think.
Okay. And so was everyone able to work okay within that amount of time to read the amount? I mean, I obviously fell short. I've been so busy, but okay. So I mean, I'm thinking about a month from now should be fine.
But a month from now, 20th of November.
Oh, that's getting close to the holidays. Or at
in
least
fact,
in
isn't that Thanksgiving for you guys? When's Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Let me take a look at the next chunk of
we might
story
have to
here.
We might have to split it up into smaller chunks.
I think so, because the next segment is only.
Also, I don't know about you, but I don't know if I can wait another month for this.
I want it sooner too.
The next segment is okay. We left off on 136, I believe. Yes.
Yes.
So.
That's so exciting, that chapter. That was the one I was going on about.
I will say that once you get to 189, it reads like a story, and so it goes quicker.
That's what I'm wondering. Do you think that we could go from 136 to 198? Do you think that that'll be easy enough?
Okay. I'm good with that.
Like she's saying, it does sound like more of a story aspect, so that does go by faster. So I think we should be able to pull that one off.
I read that story first.
Oh. Okay, yeah. Okay, then let's plan for we're going to 198, and we could figure it out in the chat. You know what day and everything will work well for people. But wow, I'm very grateful for the gathering and discussing. You know, like I say, it's one thing to read it by yourself. Everyone's sick of that. We've done that to death.
Right.
This is the beauty of this. It just makes it so real, doesn't it?
Yes,
when you're sharing it and you're really.
Definitely.
And as you're talking about it, you're learning even more because you go, oh, I didn't realize that, and I'm saying it. You know, I must have absorbed that subconsciously.
It's almost like a portal for that information to take on more than just print on paper.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then you have all our other perspectives.
Yes. And the people we talk to and the spouses that we have and the effects can just ripple out from there.
And I just have to come over to the States and just squeeze each one of you to each of your lives.
We need to have our physical breeding circles at some point.
Yes,
have some tea and cheesecake.
You
know. Gotta manifest a lotto.
Yes.
Gosh.
I
Okay,
get so much from all of you.
Yes, so do I.
Oh, yes. Perfect. Well, I'm so glad everyone took the time to be here, and I hope the time worked well for everybody. And I'm grateful for everybody. And
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the day or night.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa.
Love you all.
Thank you. Love you all. Bye.